When creating planting plans, it's quite a common occurrence to want to list different areas of the development in separate worksheets. And a couple of examples of this would be if you were doing a series of townhouses where you might have, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 different lots, and each one has a different set of plants in it that you want to list separately. Another example might be where you have a residential or commercial project where the planting needed to be costed separately or was going to be staged over different time periods. So for example, you might have in this little plan we've got a front area and a back area, but this could be, as I said, a stage thing in a commercial development like a hospital or a school, where you might have the planning going over 12 or 18 months as the budget becomes available. So I'll assume that you know how to produce a plant list of all the plants on the drawing, and in fact that's what we have here. This plant list here is listing all of the plants on the drawing. So the objective here is to find a way to list those separate areas in separate worksheets. Now there's a functionality in the worksheet called location, or its abbreviation is LOC, L-O-C, and that allows you to define different areas on your drawing and then just list the plants in those areas. Now in the case of a townhouse development, you might have a survey drawing that already has boundary objects that you can use for this. In an area like this where you might have a front and rear garden or a stage development, you may not have those polygons or those objects already defined, and so you'll have to draw them yourself to define the areas that you want listed separately. So I've done this in the drawing, in this particular drawing, and I put these objects into a class called location polys, and I'm going to turn that class on now so that you can see them, and these are the red lines here. So that's with it off, that's with it on. So we've got these location polygons, and here they are, and so the worksheet is going to list the just the plants that are within those location polygons. Now the key to this is that you have to give these polygons a name, and you'll see here that I have actually given this polygon here a name up in the data tab of the object info palette, and I've called it lot 1. And the reason I've used a colon is that lot 2, I'll just go through them. This one is front and this one is back. The reason I've used the colon is because I'm going to see that word in the worksheet, but I want the word to be distinguishable from a class that may be called lot 1 or lot 2, or a layer or a symbol that's used that name. I just want to make the name a little bit more unique so that it doesn't get confused. And when you use the names in the name tab up here, they have to be unique. Nothing else in the drawing can have that name, and you can only use a name once, which is one of the safety features of this system. So we called this one lot 1. Now I'll just digress for a moment and talk about classes. So I've put these in a class called location polys, and we can turn that class off. And that's probably okay if your drawing isn't too complicated, but once you start layering up these things in the drawing, it sometimes will get easier to manage them if you actually put them on a separate layer as opposed to a separate class. You only need one or the other, you don't necessarily need both. And I've actually done that in this drawing as well. So if we go to the layer list here, you'll see that I have a layer called location polygons, and if we make that active and turn off the other layer, this allows me to isolate these. So if you think you'll have a need to isolate these separately from the rest of the objects in the drawing, then probably using layers is the way to go. But it can be layers or classes. The functionality will work the same. So we've got our polygons and we've named them. So let's have a look at the results of what this can produce. obviously the objective here is to be able to hide these things, so I'm going to make that class or that layer invisible, and we've made the class invisible. So we don't need to see those objects in the drawing. The only time you might want to see them is if you've moved something on a drawing. Let's say I'd taken these and moved them over here. I would need to be able to see these objects again to realize that I didn't move the location polys as well. So that's just one of the precautions that you need to take. You've got to obviously be disciplined about keeping these location polygons aligned with the objects. I'm just going to back out of that, undo it, and undo that move. And the one other thing is that what determines whether a plant is within the polygon is the center of the whole plant, including the tag. So I'm going to group this now just to demonstrate this. So let's go group, and the center of this group is where the cursor is now, and you can see it's well within this boundary here. Alright, now I'll give you an example of where it mightn't be. I'll just ungroup that. Let's go ahead and group this one. And if I move this not too far to the left, you can see now that the combined tag and plant sees this being outside, or the center of this being outside the polygon. So this won't get counted as being within this polygon. So I guess that's the main limitation of using this system. You've got to be disciplined about making sure the plants are within the polygon. I'll go ahead and ungroup that now. And let's just nudge it back over so that it's being included. So let's have a look now at this worksheet. And I prepared this special worksheet here that will allow us to do this. Now, it's this cell here, cell C1, that I've added the functionality, or I'm relating to it. So if I enter the name of this lot here, remember it was colon lot 1, so we'll put colon lot 1, I hit enter, you'll see that the worksheet is now displaying the objects from this lot only. If I change this to lot 2, then it's changing again. If I change it to front, you're going to see that we're just getting the jacaranda and the Acanthia palm from this front garden here. So that's how it can work. And when this is empty, then the worksheet is just going to list all of the plants in the drawing. So this is quite flexible, this worksheet. It can either list all of the plants, or it can list just the plants that are in a specific area. Now we'll come and look at the formulas for this in a moment, but let's just talk for a moment about how you might work this. So if you needed to produce separate worksheets for this, let's have a look at the resource browser, clicking the little home button here to make sure we're looking at the active file, and this is the worksheet that we were just looking at. It's not one of the standard ones, but it will become one of the standard ones. So what I'm going to do is to duplicate this, and I can do that by right clicking on it and choosing duplicate, and we're going to call this plant list lot 1. And let's duplicate that again, and we'll call this plant list lot 2. Notice it's automatically incrementing those numbers, so we'll click OK to that. So let's now edit these two worksheets that we've created and just put the correct lot number in them. So I'm going to right click on this and choose open, and this is plant list lot 1, so we're going to put colon lot 1 in this field here, press enter, close that down, and we'll do the same for this. Open, right click, open, colon, no space, colon lot 2, and there we have the separate one for that. So we'll close that down. So we now have these two worksheets set up. So if we wanted to put them on the drawing, then I could double click on this. There's our lot 1 worksheet, and double click on this, and there's our lot 2 worksheet. Obviously you'd arrange them probably slightly differently to this, and so it goes. So we've got a plant list for lot 1, it's listing the plants in lot 1, and we've got the plant list for lot 2, listing the plants there. So that's how it works. It's not too difficult to manage. You've obviously got to be disciplined with the naming and with making sure that the center of the plant and tag are within the bounding areas, and obviously you can't go moving things around on the drawing without also moving the location polygons around. But if you comply with those rules, then it can work really well. So if you get squeamish at looking at formulas, you probably better turn away now, because let's now have a look at the worksheet and see how I've set this up. So here's the first worksheet, and currently we have the database headers turned on. So that's how the worksheets are going to look, and to be fair, I should have turned off the database headers on these as well, which I can do. Double click, turn off database headers, uncheck that, close it down, that looks better. Open that, turn off database headers, close it down. Alright, so we've got our two plant lists there. So looking at our main one, and so we can edit this, we want to have this going. So let's first of all look at this row here. Now the formula row has a formula in this cell here that determines what appears in the expanded cells here, and this is what makes it a database worksheet as opposed to just a normal worksheet. And so this row here is listing all of the trees in the drawing with some special conditions, and then each column then has tells us what we want to list from the plants that we've found. So this one is listing the ID, this one is listing the quantity, and this one is listing the common name, and so on. So let's drill in here and have a look at the formula. So I'm going to mouse down in this cell here that has a little diamond in it, mouse down, and then choose edit criteria. Now for these it's going to say we can't edit these in the criteria dialog, you have to edit it manually, so we just click OK, and this is the formula that we've got here. Now it's quite it's a bit complicated, but essentially what the formula is saying is if cell C1 contains a colon, remember we put those colons in, then this is going to list the plant record and the category tree, so any tree that is within the location specified in C1. If this cell here doesn't contain a colon, then it's just going to list all of the trees in the drawing. Alright, now you don't really have to worry about this formula too much, because the chances are you can just use one of the stock standard worksheets, and if you can't find one of these worksheets that we've modified like this, just email us and we'll send you the worksheet. So we have put this formula in these all of these formula cells here, cell 4, cell 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So what this means is that I can type anything in here I like, and it's not going to have any impact on the worksheet until it contains a colon, and as soon as it has a colon, then the location polygons are going to kick in and start being used. So we're going to put the colon in lot 1, and that's when the alternative is going to get used.